Hey, hey, come on in the room, guys. Come on in the room. I'm not going to be long tonight. I just want to kind of set you guys up for the divine announcement that'll be made on the 31st, probably somewhere in the afternoon. We're going to make a divine announcement regarding some of the things the Father has been sharing concerning the future of the sons. We're excited about what's next. We're excited about the new in this season, but I just wanted to come on because I wanted to share a couple of things that I have been seeing over and over again in this last season. And we want to deal with just a few things. I want a couple of things to be on your mind just for the sake of pondering them. I want a couple of things to be on your mind just for the sake of pondering. So I'm here tonight to just kind of share some of those things because I think that it will really be beneficial. You can't change what you don't know needs to be changed. And so the thing that I'm finding though is that a lot of people are ignoring things that are blatantly in their face. There's an ignoring of things that are blatantly in the face of the sons. And we've got to be very mindful. You understand the word said that if it were at all possible, even the very elect, right? If it were possible. But for the sake of the believers, blessings to all those that are coming on, for the sake of the believers, the Father said, I'm going to show up for mine. I'm going to show up for the sake of the believers. So I want to share some things with you tonight. I think they're very potent and I think they're very important. So if you are on this live right now and you love some people, I want you to tag them tonight because I'm going to share some things that are very potent and very important for us to be mindful of in this season. We're missing some things. And so we don't want to be missing these things. We want to be aware of what's going on, and we don't want to be as the first man was in the garden with access to a divine relationship and destroying the divine relationship for the hopes or the dream or something else that's being sold. And I think there is a lot of us being sold something else in this season and we really don't realize it. But I'm going to tell you, the stakes are high right now. The stakes are high. I was sharing this with someone the other day, and I'll share it with you guys. We need to have our faces to the ground in this season, literally have our faces to the ground, literally. Okay. Not this is not a figurative. I'm talking about not your knees on the floor, but your face. Like you need to be prostrate in this season because um, the adversary is pulling out all the stops. And I'm looking at some things in this season that are really blowing my mind. That people are missing some very, to me, they're very prominent. Okay, to sons who are hearing sons and seeing sons and sensing sons, not just by your flesh, but by the Spirit of God. And this is really important because there's too much flesh. And this is why the Father is calling us into a place of consecration. Many of us have been going in and out of consecration all year long, but I'm telling you, the stakes are high, and you're going to need to see this as a very serious matter. Okay, this is a very serious matter. It's not a game, it's not a joke. And what I don't want for many of you to do is to wait until it's ungodly too late to realize that what's been being spoken to you was the Father all along. You know, it's often that if we don't want to hear it, right, that we try to block it out. We try to blot it out because, for one, there's a pride that's involved here. There's a pride that's involved here. For one, we don't want to feel like we're that stupid that we would miss something that blatant. But the truth of the matter is that deception is not a blatant, uh, it's not blatantly visible. It would not be deception if it was blatantly visible. It would just be stupidity. You know, somebody trying to trick you into something and it's blatantly visible just says that they're not professional. You know, it says that they're not good at what they do. You know, they've got these things about stupid criminals. You ever seen that show? It's absolutely hilarious. Some of the things that people do with no concept of even what they're trying to do, and it's like that was blatantly to you is blatantly ridiculous, that they tried to do it that way because you knew, just looking upon what they were attempting to do, that it was not going to be successful, that this was absolutely ridiculous to even try to go in this vein. And I'm telling you, that's not the protocol that darkness is coming with in this season. There is no blatant visibility of what the enemy is doing. It's not blatant at all. Okay. As a matter of fact, it's very unsuspecting. It's very unsuspecting. And so I noticed a lot in this season that there are times when I'm communicating some things to people. And it's as if, they're not hearing it. But to me, it's blatant. To me, it's very clear what's happening. And to them, it's not clear, but it's because we've operated with flesh so much that now we don't understand spiritual things. It's really simple. It's like when you're dealing with your children, right? I heard somebody say this the other day. It was so powerful. We are missing this factor when it comes to, I'm going to tell you what they said in a minute, scenario, but we're missing this factor. We're missing the switch, the on-off switch that allows us to understand when it's playtime and when it's serious time, right? So with parents, there's a time when there's a tickling, and this was the conversation. There's a time when there's tickling happening and there's laughter and all of that. And then there's a time when a parent says, like, go do this, or go clean your room, or go do this, or come here, or whatever. And that's not the time that we're tickling, that we're laughing anymore. That's a time that some very direct instructions are being given, very clear and concise instructions being given. And because a person is unable to differentiate between playtime and go time, they're not understanding what they should be doing or how they should be moving. I'm telling you that the stakes are very high right now. And a lot of people are not going to know what the move is. They're not going to understand the difference between tickle time, the giggle time, the smiley time, and the seriousness of God. They don't understand the difference. So they are overlapping these things, right? And then I want to share this with you because, again, the stakes are high. I was sharing this morning in the place of prayer, right? And this is a very serious matter. A lot of people don't understand that when we talk about grace, there's not often a conversation that says grace, period. But I want you to know that grace is a period. Okay. We've got a lot of people who are under the impression that grace is perpetual. Grace is not perpetual. It is a period. Okay. And why it's a period is because something very serious was done on the behalf of mankind. A sacrifice was made that was a very serious sacrifice to put you in a position where you would have a grace period in order to realize the love of God, in order to recognize the sacrifice that had been made, and to position yourself in alignment with these things, right? There is a reason why the master continually had conversations about following this way. We often read it as if it's a responsibility that he has in the earth, and the responsibility is on us now. He did his part when he was here, but he left the example, right? So that it could be followed. And so we live in a culture, in a religious culture, where a lot of people are thinking or have an expectation that the master is going to do something, that the father is doing something. These things have already been done, and now it's on us to stand. The scripture in Isaiah says, rise, shine, for your light is come. In other words, when light comes, when illumination comes, when revelation comes, there is a responsibility that is going to take place on the behalf of those who have been enlightened, right? When the eyes of your understanding are enlightened, that is a time for you to begin to do something, right? And so a lot of times we're still just depending on, well, we laugh about these things, take the will Jesus and do it Jesus and all of these things, but there's something that is on sons to do. It's not going to be left to anyone else. It's going to be left to sons. That's why we're here. There is a purpose for your person, and you've got to come into the understanding of what the purpose of your person is so that you can carry out that purpose. And if you are not understanding that there's a purpose, if you fail to carry out that purpose, then you're going to have a problem. It's a simple combination. There is a grace period. And I want to tell you this because maybe you haven't heard this before. Maybe this may be the first time you've ever heard anything like it, right? But if you're listening, there's a purpose for you being on here. The grace period is being lifted. Now, let me help you to understand. I'll give you at least one scenario. If I don't give you multiple, I'll give you at least two witnesses. Can I give you two witnesses? Because the word says that out of the mouth of two or three witnesses, every word is established. So let me share this with you. Welcome to those that are coming on. I can't see you guys, so let me go there. No, nobody's commented yet, so I'm going to just sit with what I'm doing. The thing about it is, when Noah, and I put this up today, very important that you understand that the Father has given us many scenarios by his word and through the prophets, given us many scenarios to help us identify and to understand that this is a period of grace. Grace is not a perpetual situation. Grace is a period. And so when you look at Noah, we are in the time where it was as it was in the days of Noah. So shall it be when the Son of Man appears. Well, what is this Son of Man? Let's take the moment and just look at this really briefly. I don't want to hold you really, really long tonight. I've only been on 12 minutes. I potentially may only hold you 30 because I want to position you for what is going to happen on the 31st, somewhere in the afternoon. I don't have a time for it. I'm just going to come on. I'm going to share it with you, share the flyer with you, and then I'm just going to come on. So, but I want you to be prepared for that. I want to give a divine address. I want to give a divine forecast for where we are and what the Father is doing. But let's go to this. In Noah's day, right? He spent time talking to these people for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years, he was talking to these people and attempting to cause them to understand, to come into the belief that there was something new that was taking place, that there was something new that was about to transpire. They thought it strange. They thought it odd. They did not want to accept it. The Bible says they went on marrying and being given to marriage, just being married, right? Just living their lives as if there was no other outcomes, right? I've been saying this for some seasons now, and now it is upon us. It is harvest time. Now, for most religious people, that would be an exciting thing. This is a very sad thing and an exciting thing for me because I know that I've been, by the power of God and by the Spirit of God, led to share many things in many seasons to bring understanding, to bring clarity, to bring awareness to people at this time. And many people, these things have fallen on deaf ears, many of these things, because you don't understand the prophetic. You don't understand the nature of the prophetic. So you think if it doesn't happen in that month, if it doesn't happen in that year, that it is not what the word of the Lord is. But I want to tell you about the love of God that constrains us. The love of God, because he loves us, he not only gives us a week's notice, he gives us years in advance. He gives us actual years. I mean, like I'm talking, he'll give you a whole decade conversation before the manifestation of something takes place. So let's go to Noah for a minute. He's talking to these people, right, to bring them into some understanding, some awareness that there is something new that is taking place, something new that is about to be released in the earth. And they think it's strange. They don't understand the contraption he's building. They're not willing to take the time to understand his language, right? And so this grace period that was given them, hundreds of years of a grace period was given to them, and they ignored the period of grace. They ignored it, okay? And when they realized that what he was saying was true, when they realized, it didn't even dawn on them to look at this structure and to recognize that this was not normal, that this was something that they had never seen before, but somehow it was all coming together, right? Even the animals were coming to the ark. Even the animals were being sent to him to put them in their proper placement, to put them in their proper place. All of these things are taking place. I am certain that this is not something that Noah did by himself. I am certain that there was a lot of supernatural activity, because everything that the Father does that is major has supernatural activity connected to it. I am certain that there were watchers involved. I am certain that this was not just a natural occurrence, but that it was divine. And they were overlooking that because it was not something that they wanted to hear, because it was not something that they wanted to receive. It did not go along with their idea of how they wanted to live their lives. It did not go along with their idea of how they wanted to see things, because them seeing it Noah's way would have meant for an adjustment in their life. It would have meant for a responsibility to align with what he was saying. And it's not something that they wanted to do. Can I tell you, I'm looking at people every day. I'm communicating with people every day who are failing to understand that when the Father sends a prophet, when the Father sends a word, it is not because people are just in their feelings. Can you imagine that the people and how they felt about the prophets of old? They're saying these things, and oh, he's just in his emotions. Of course, Jeremiah, right, was the weeping prophet. Oh, he's always crying. He's just in his emotions. And it's like, no, that's not what this is about. He's saying something and he's crying out, or he's pleading for a thing to be visualized. He's pleading for a thing to be seen. I can tell you with all of my strength, I have pleaded with people to see things, and they don't see it because they don't want to. They don't want to. And the strange thing about it, we're going to go back to Noah in a minute because of this realization, this stark realization that happens when things start to happen. And for some, let me say this to you, for some, even when things start to happen that prophets have prophesied to people, they're still not going to believe it. You know why? Because they don't want to. And this is where the searing with the hot iron of the mind, of the spirit comes in. Because when you can't see what's already been said is being done, that's a very scary thing. It's a very scary thing. You understand what I'm saying? Here they are. I've been saying some things for some months now. I mean, for some years, not months, but for some years now. I have had personal conversations with people that I love very deeply and told them of things that were to come, told them to do specific things, told them this is what the word of the Lord is to you concerning this situation, this particular thing. Move in this way, move in this manner. And they ignored it. So let's go to the children of Israel for a minute. And we're going back to Noah. Even as it pertained to the children of Israel, the Father says this in Psalm 107, the 107th division of Psalm. Very powerful position. And we're going to be sharing that during our divine address, right? Our divine forecast. We're going to be sharing some things out of that. But here's the thing. He said, listen, I showed you some things. I showed myself to you. I exposed who I am to you. You had seen the mighty works of my hand. It's not like you have not seen this. It's not like you do not know this. This is something that I've made very prevalent in your sight, right? I didn't just expect you to spiritually connect with what I was doing. I physically showed it to you. And yet you despise the might of my hand. You despise the work that I did on your behalf, the fighting that I did for you. And not only did you despise it, but you created images that you became after the similitude of, the similitude. So in other words, you created something to have a resemblance to when I gave you my resemblance. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So let's go back to Noah for a minute. Hundreds of years he's sharing with a people who cannot hear him. And I am certain, because I know the nature of the God that I serve, that along that way, there were very relevant things that were being shared with these people in order for them to be able to connect the dots, but they yet refuse to connect the dots. But when that rain began to fall, are you hearing me? I want you to hear me clearly. Oh, the rain is coming. You think it's hard because you've lost some things. You think it's hard because you've suffered a little bit of loss. You think it's hard because, things are not going the way that you had planned them. You think it's hard, but oh, the rain is coming. the rain is coming. And if you are not hearing what the word of the Lord is, then you will be caught outside of this ark. You will be caught outside of this ark that the Father has been creating for years. He's been establishing a place of safety. He talks about those that dwell in the secret place of the Most High, abiding under the shadow of the Almighty. He talked to us about his name that is a strong tower, and the righteous running are saved. He talked to us about the voice of the prophets and how he does nothing in the earth except he first reveal it, have a conversation with his serving prophets. And people have been ignoring that. It's been ignored. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody's paying attention. A lot of people are very moved emotionally. They're very moved emotionally by so many things, right? Lips are dry. Moved emotionally by so many things, but spiritual things can't move you. That which is spiritual doesn't move you in this season because you've become so carnal that now you are no longer impacted by what impacts the Father. You're no longer moved by where he is. You're no longer moved by how he feels. You're no longer moved by the things that have been spoken concerning the earth to the sons, as it being our responsibility to carry out some things. You're very desensitized, but the stakes are high. Are you hearing me? The stakes are high. And there is a war of frequencies. And many people are not winning this war. I put up something earlier, and I want to pull it up really quickly because he said, if you don't learn, then you will repeat. And many people are not learning. They are simply repeating the same scenarios over and over again. Different people, same scenarios. Different place, same scenario. The enemy has been able to trick many people, to seduce many people. There's a bewitching that is happening, but it's the same scenario, just different places and different people. And because people are refusing to see the truth of the matter, they're being dealt with on a certain level. There's some impact that is coming to people because we're refusing to see things for what they are. And when we refuse to see the thing for what it is, we don't have a defense. We don't have a defense. Are you listening to me? I want to pull this up really quickly if I have it in my notes, if I can find it. If I can find it. Listen, if you have not invited someone, share and invite. I want to prepare you guys. We're just a few minutes away, 7 minutes. I'm going to try to take 7 minutes. I gave you one witness that this is only a grace period. Okay. Let me give you another one. The talents. You guys are very familiar with the passage about the talents. I want you to go and find these things. I'm not going to give you verses tonight. I want you to take the time and be like the Bereans and go search it out. Okay. Here's the thing with the talents. This landowner, this king, this one who had the possessions, he had already assessed the people that he was dealing with to know how much of what to give each one based on their several abilities, based on their capacity. We want to talk about capacity in just a day or so, right? On that, yeah, we want to talk about capacity in 2 days, okay? But he gave based on their capacity, what he knew they were capable or had the capacity to handle, right? And so this is another scenario. There was a grace period given. What was the grace period? The grace period was when the landowner, when the king, when he went away, he gave to them based on their several abilities this talent, right? Which was money at that time. Let me give you something and see what you will make of what I give you, right? He gives a grace period. He gives a favor and then he gives a grace period. He's gone. But when he returns, the grace period has ended. It's over. And now there has to be an account that's given. I know many people, because of religious ideas, religious, false religious conversations. People are thinking that the judgment is happening only at the end. There are many judgments before a final judgment. And if you can identify with the previous judgments of your life, if you can identify with those, then you can begin to align yourself with what the Father is saying and what he's doing. But if you ignore the previous judgments, then you will likely wind right back up in the courts of heaven, being dealt with again on the same matters. The same matters. Okay? So he goes away. That's the grace period. But when he returns, he has an expectation. What is his expectation? His expectation is that something was done with what was given. But he comes back to find that one has done nothing. During the grace period, 2 others have doubled what was given, but one has done nothing. I gave you the scenario of Noah and the ark. It was strange to them what he was saying and what he was doing, because it was something that was unfamiliar to them. The same as this talent situation. You know, there was a grace period. There was something that was given, and then there was something that was expected. And for one, there was nothing that was done. Let's talk about the fig tree for a moment. The one that the owner of the land, the landowner, the owner of the vineyard says, throw it out. And the one that is the keeper on the behalf of those things that have been planted says, give me a moment. I'm going to dig around it. Give me a grace period. Listen, the one who owned it says, why is it taking up space? I'm telling you, the stakes are high right now. There are some things that are about to take place that many people are unaware of because they're so busy doing what they think is important, and they're missing the point that the Father is doing something new. But before he began to do the new thing, he began to posture us for what he was doing, for what was already being done. He began to create these different conversations and have conversations with us and take us through different expressions of things and seeing things a certain way. And if we have refused to see it, now it's harvest time. And I told you at the beginning that often in the religious community, when you hear harvest time, people get excited. But can I tell you some things about harvest time? Harvest time requires that there be laborers to get the harvest. If there are no laborers, then the harvest spoils, or there is spoilage. Harvest time requires that there are tools that are used to do the extraction. Tools can be physical tools, or tools can be the instruments or the people that will go, right? Harvest time means based on what was planted, that is the crop that is now in full harvest. Can I tell you something? There has been a grace period where there has been much planting, and now it is harvest time. So based on what has been planted over the years, continuously planted, now the harvest from what has been planted is coming up. And there will be many who are disappointed in this season. You know why? Because they refuse to hear the prophets. They refuse to hear people that are communicating with them the word of the Lord. People that love enough to look dumb enough to say something to you. They love enough to be treated like they don't know what they're talking about. They love enough for you to feel like, oh, that's not for me in this season. They love you enough to feel the rejection that comes with the word that they're about to give. They love you enough that you don't see that. So there's going to be a lot of disappointment. It's an exciting time, but it's also going to be a very disappointing time for many. So I gave you several scenarios. The stakes are high. I'm telling you, they are. They're very high. And what you can't hear, you will feel. What you're unable, what you're unwilling to hear. I won't even say you're unable. What you're unwilling to hear, you will feel. I'm looking at people who in another season could not hear my words when I was saying something very simple. A word of the Lord that was very simple. Move this over here. Separate that out from there and move it here. And so now I'm hearing, oh, it was a loss. Oh, it's been lost. But it wouldn't have been lost if you could hear. Now that the loss is there, now there's another emotional blow. Now the enemy has another angle to try to pull people into, because now you're only dealing with your flesh, you're only dealing with your emotions. But the Father loved enough to say, let me help you, let me spare you the emotions of this moment by telling you what needs to happen. Are you hearing what I'm saying? There's a feeling of loss because there was a refusal to hear. Father, help us to believe again. Help us to hear what you're saying. Help us not to count this grace period as a perpetual period of grace. Help us to see it for what it is, so that we'll begin to hear you when you speak. We'll begin to be sensitive to what you're saying, so that we can begin to do what you called us to do. Man, I have so much to say, but I'm going to save a lot of it because it's already 30 minutes. I'm going to save a lot of it for our divine forecast in just a couple of days. But I want you to be very sensitive over the next couple of days. Consecrate yourself even if you have to, but be very sensitive. Because if you're feeling or you're sensing loss in this season, in a season where the Father's desire is for us to win, there will always be things that are happening around us. Don't get me wrong. But it's what you're feeling in this moment that's going to determine for you. It's actually a definition of where you've been. It's a definition of what you've been believing. It's a definition of what you've been under the impression of. So now if you're feeling lost, you've been under the wrong impression. If what you're experiencing right now is not a sense of victory in the face of defeat, you've been under the wrong impression. Believe as prophets, so shall you prosper. Believe the word of the Lord, you'll be established. Believe his prophets. Not only will he establish you, but he will prosper. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So I'm going to come back in a couple of days. I had a lot more to say. You can see some of the details in the section, or the comment section, or the status section, a little window where we put our, conversation about what's going on with the video, what we're actually talking about. But there's some things coming down the pipeline that a lot of people are going to be very disappointed. Why would you wait until the rain begins to fall? Because that's not the time that your tears are going to matter. Because the Father is closing some things up in the season. He's closing a chapter of grace. He's closing up some things. He said, I will have mercy on who I will have mercy. That doesn't mean that mercy is not still going to be a thing. And he doesn't expect newborn babies to walk. But there are many who have been close enough to the word to apply themselves to a word that they have refused. And now you're going to feel it. Now you're going to feel it. It's a very exciting time, but it's also a very sad time. Help us, Father, to hear what you're saying. Help us to not only hear, but to receive it, to believe it, and to do exactly what you're saying for us to do in this season. I love you guys. Thank you for being with me today. Don't forget to share it. If you're watching on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. We're building some things in this season, and I'm excited about what the Father is doing. There are some things that are happening, and I'm excited about what the happenings are. We're finally here. I put it up on my page the other day. We're finally here. We are here. We're there now. But there, for a lot of people, is going to be very disappointing in this season, because in former seasons you could not hear. You refused the word of the Lord through the prophet of God, the prophets of God. Not just talking about myself. I'm talking about people that have been sent to say things to you that you have refused. And I've been telling people for years, find your leader. because you're going to need it in this season. Where there is no shepherd, the sheep are scattered. Are you hearing me? If you're out there without a leader, then you're going to be scattered in the seasons that are coming. I'm going to look and see who's online. Grace and peace, brother. Grace and peace. There's going to be a scattering. There's going to be a scattering because people have not been able to hear. And again, when I say not been able to hear, I mean you've refused the word of the Lord. Not you couldn't hear it, not that you didn't have the capacity, not that you didn't have the capability, but you absolutely refused to hear it. You refused to hear it. It's a very exciting place, but it's a very sad place. For many, for so many. I love you guys. I'm getting out of here. I just wanted to come on and give you a heads up that the stakes are high. It's like telling you guys the difference between the shallow end of the pool and the deep end. There is no shallow end of this pool in this season. It's the deep end. And you're either going to swim or you're going to sink in this season, especially if you've been in the way for a while. As the old saints say, I've been in the way a long time. And that's part of the problem. Literally, not figuratively, many have been in the way. You've been in the way, but not following the way. Okay? I hope you guys understand my conversation tonight. I hope that you can grasp these concepts and that you will begin to understand what face to the floor means. We're going to start our consecration here in a few days, probably the 31st. We'll be going back into the new year, into the Gregorian New Year on consecration, because we know for the sons of Yah, the Hebraic calendar says that our new year, or the first of the month for us, is at Passover. Okay? So I know there are a lot of conversations about the contrary, but it's not true. It's not true. But again, many of us have been saying these things over and over again, but you know, a lot of people are not listening. They are simply beholden to what they think is valid, and they're missing what God is saying. He's saying, get on my schedule, get in my way of doing things, get on with my mind, move with my mind in this season. Don't lean to your understanding, because there's very little that you understand without my help. That's what the Father's saying to us. And don't think that you know what I'm about to do, because it's new. And yes, I do share some things with the prophets, but I don't tell them every detail. There's a necessity for you to be sensitive enough to hear and sensitive enough to move when you're being spoken to. That's real. Yeah, he gives us certain dimensions of things, but there are things that he will hide from prophets as well. He will hide things. You know why? Because you have to be sensitive enough to hear what he's saying. Have to be sensitive enough. And he's demanding a certain level of relationship, particularly out of people who have said they were belonging to him. He's demanding some things in this season. It's not a game. The stakes are very high. And understand, I'll give you one more scenario. If the angels could lose their former estate, what makes you think you can't lose yours? Understand, with grace being given, your ability to decide is not taken. Grace doesn't mean that the ability to choose is gone. Grace means that I'm giving you my ability, the ability to accomplish the things that I'm calling you to. Grace is God's ability. It's him affording you an opportunity to step into a dimension that he's calling you to. But when you refuse, and you continue to refuse, it's a period. And it does have a period. It's an end of a sentence at some point. It's not a beginning or not a perpetual conversation. Grace has a period, and it is a period. It's not perpetual. I love y'all. I'm getting out of here. I went 10 minutes over my time that I wanted to go over, that I wanted to do. And so I'm getting out of here. We'll be back on in just a few days, giving the divine forecast, the prophetic address for what the Father has been sharing with me. Um, and I'm excited, but I'm also very humbled and I'm very sad for many people because a lot of us are just not getting it. A lot of us are part of that first batch, unfortunately, of Israelites that could not enter the promise. A lot of us, a lot of people. I won't say us because I don't speak French. It's not we. I'm going into the promise. And this is why I often say to people that I lead, I'm not Moses. And when a father tells me move out of the way, I'm going to kill him and we're going to start over, I'll do it. Just the way he told me to do it, because I'll never allow myself to be so angry with people that I've protected, uh, that I know wouldn't protect me. But I'm going to hit the rock and I'm going to strike the rock and set to speak to it. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So I would much rather distance myself from rebellion than to keep trying to cover it or cover for it. But I'm right now, what you could not hear in another season, you're going to feel in this one. You're going to feel it. I love you much. Peace to your house. And until the next time we meet again, understand the body is not a me thing. It's a we thing. Open your ears, awaken, and put on your strength. It is time for us to do the thing that we were purposed to do in the earth. And those who don't understand the purpose in this season, that have been in the way for some time, will simply be cast in the outer darkness. I know that sounds so harsh, but I don't care. I want to make sure that you can hear this word, that you understand that it's not tickle time with God. This is a very serious time. Tickle time is over. And now it's time for you to follow instructions. Have a good night.